Support for this podcast comes from St. Alphonsus Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Clinics, with physicians, physical therapists, and trainers who treat sports and performance-related injuries, with locations across the valley. More information on services and locations at stalphonsus.org/stayactive.
Congress is now deciding the future of funding for public radio and public television. Hello, this is Tom Michael, General Manager of Boise State Public Radio. This rescission request, or clawback of approved funding, passed through the U.S. House, and now it's before the U.S. Senate. This is the time to let your senator from Idaho know about your support of the news and music that public radio provides. Contact information at protectmypublicmedia.org.
From Boise State Public Radio, this is The Connector. It's Idaho's Daily News. Good morning. I'm George Prentice. We've got a good many stories to share with you on this day. Here we go. An Idaho State Police report shows hate crimes are on the rise in the Gem State. Our Jamie Geary asked the Wasmuth Center for Human Rights how communities can counter hateful extremism.
68 hate crimes were reported to the Idaho State Police in 2024. That's a 21% increase from the previous year. The crimes were most often motivated by racial bias, and the majority were reported in Boise. Christina Bruce-Benion is the Wasmuth Center's executive director. She's concerned by the increase of incidents.
When we make it okay to dehumanize a group of people, the violence will follow. And so a big part of that is, how do we rehumanize each other?
She recommends reaching out to people around you, whether it's friends, neighbors, or faith groups, to build communities that resist hate.
Fear is contagious and courage is contagious as well. And I think that when we build those networks, it amplifies those voices.
The Wasmuth Center is taking steps to, quote, spark conversation and connection. It's part of an attempt to educate against hate in Idaho. Hate crimes must be verified by Idaho State Police before they are added to the official annual tally. Jamie Geary, Boise State Public Radio News.
The Radiation Exposure Compensation Act has been expanded to include Idaho and other states. Yvette Fernandez tells us more.
The federal program, known as RECA, expired last year amid cost cutting, but it got a second life in President Trump's big budget bill, reauthorized through 2028. RECA helps people who were exposed to radiation from testing conducted in Nevada, New Mexico, and Guam, and those who live downwind of testing sites. Tona Henderson with the Idaho Downwinders Association was happy to see the program expanded to include her state, but says it still has flaws.
They won't pay for urinary tract cancer, but they will for bladder cancer. Prostate cancer is huge in all of these downwind communities, and it's not included.
The program expanded to include downwinders covering all of New Mexico, Utah, Idaho, and portions of Arizona. Coverage in Nevada remains the same. There's also expanded coverage for some uranium workers. The program pays a $100,000 compensation for people with qualifying cancers. For the Mountain West News Bureau, I'm Yvette Fernandez.
In the Wood River Valley, officials have been working for some time to secure a federal grant to help fund a project to mitigate against natural hazards, including severe storms, floods, or wildfires. But the FEMA grant ran into some headwinds. An executive order from the Trump White House requires the following words be removed from the grant application: climate, climate change, greenhouse gases, and more. A letter from the federal government to Blaine County said feds would not consider funding the project unless those words were removed. On Tuesday, Blaine County Commissioner Muffy Davis said, yes, the words could be removed, and the county will be carefully looking at how they approach future grants.
But I think as we think strategically and decide on our priorities. I think we need to be thinking about the bigger picture of climate change.
The grant is eligible for 90% federal funding, about 10% local. Blaine County officials said most of their funding would be in kind through the use of county personnel and resources. It's an important week for public transportation in the Sun Valley region. Mountain Rides, the public transit agency in the Wood River Valley, is transitioning to a fully electric bus fleet. And a new depot to house and charge the electric buses is expected to be complete by this Friday. Wally Morgus is the executive director of the Mountain Rides Transportation Authority.
Construction of our new battery electric bus facility in Bellevue is wrapping up. The contractors saying that they will be finished by July 11th.
The project's total cost, about $5.5 million. Mountain Ride says electric costs about 27 cents a mile for their buses, while their diesel costs have been about 50 cents a mile. Idaho Fish and Game is trying to figure out how many wild turkeys are roaming the state. Julie Lucata tells us how the public can help.
Introduced in the 60s, turkeys are not native to Idaho. Fish and Game Jeff Knetter says they've become a popular game bird mostly because hunters can easily find them on public lands, especially in the springtime when the flamboyantly colored males look for mates.
The hunter is actually pretending to be a hen in most cases, trying to call that tom in their direction. And I think that can be a very exciting experience for people, hearing that gobble as well as seeing that bird strut in front of them.
Turkeys are pretty abundant in the Panhandle and Clearwater regions, but turns out it's difficult to know exactly how many of them there are.
Are they stable? Are they decreasing in certain parts of the state? So we don't have a methodology, and truthfully, no state really has a methodology for pinpointing the actual number of birds.
That's where the turkey tracker comes in. Fish and Game just wants anyone who sees a wild turkey to simply report it on the agency's website or on its app.
Yep, you just enter the county you're in, as well as the number of birds you observed, and you submit it, and lickety-split shows up in our database here.
Knetter hopes they will receive at least as many turkey sightings as last year, or about 1,400. Julie Lucata, Boise State Public Radio News.
And that is today's episode of The Connector. I'm George Prentice. To stay in touch with the news, check out BoiseStatePublicRadio.org or download the free Boise State Public Radio app. And thanks for listening.
These days, there's so much news, it can be hard to keep up with what it all means for you, your family, and your community. The Consider This podcast from NPR features our award-winning journalism. 6 days a week, we bring you a deep dive on a news story and provide the context and analysis that helps you make sense of the news. We get behind the headlines. We get to the truth. Listen to the Consider This podcast from NPR.